Hi everybody, my name is Janira and I am a student success coach here at Hondo College. And today I'm going to be going over our success strategies workshop, and we are going to go ahead and get started as soon as I share the screen with you. Okay. So again, I'm going to be going over a couple of success strategies that we recommend to students throughout their academic career here at Hondo. Okay, so today's objectives, which is just kind of the takeaway that we want you to have from this workshop. So we're hoping that you'll be able to identify, list 2 ways to prepare for an exam. Also identify 3 organizational strategies, while also obtaining an understanding of what SMART goals are. And we're going to be going over what those are within the presentation. I do recommend that you take out maybe some paper, maybe a pen, if you want to take some notes, okay? And moving on. So first and foremost, we're going to start with note taking. So again, it's recommended you take out a sheet of paper and a pen or pencil, just so you can kind of get used to note taking, and you can use that throughout the workshop to take notes. So a couple of note-taking strategies. There are a total of 6 of them, as you can see. We do recommend that students complete assigned readings before class. That way you already go into the class kind of with some knowledge about the topic that's going to be taught. We recommend that you review notes from the previous class. A lot of times professors will touch base on a couple things that they lectured about in the past, so that's why we recommend that. Of course, bringing all necessary materials, including your pen, your laptop, your highlighters, whatever materials you need. Next, we recommend sitting towards the front of the room if you are someone who maybe has some trouble concentrating. Sitting towards the front kind of allows you to stay a little bit more focused. The next is dating and numbering each day's notes. That way you're able to kind of see chronologically what was being taught. And most importantly, if an instructor says, hey, we're only going to be going over chapters 1 through 6, then maybe you know, okay, I have my notes from chapter 1 through 6 in a certain order. And that can help keep you more organized. And then finally, identifying your note-taking style, which is also very important because there are different ways to take notes. So I'm going to go over 3 note-taking styles in particular. The first one, as you can see, is the outline technique. We see a lot of students use this one just because you're able to kind of list and bullet kind of things that stick out to you. We also see some students using a mapping system. Again, it kind of lets you jot down all of the ideas or jot down the different information that you're taking in. And then, as I'm sure you've all heard, or if you haven't, there's also a note-taking style called Cornell Notes, in which on the left-hand side, you write kind of the main ideas, questions that connect points. Again, just kind of like any main points, whereas in the note column, you kind of expand on those main points, kind of expand or maybe answer some of the questions you might have for yourself. And then in the bottom, just a summary column so that you can kind of summarize the gist of like maybe the lesson or the lecture or the content that you just learned. Okay, moving on. I know I recommended earlier that you take out a sheet of paper and maybe something to write with. We do recommend that you take that sheet of paper out again so that you're able to practice kind of what strategies we are suggesting, okay? Moving on to study skills. We're gonna watch a quick video on the 9 best scientific study tips just to kind of help you get a gist of what are the 9 best study tips. I also recommend that you maybe start taking notes in one of the note-taking styles that we mentioned, which again is outline technique, mapping system, or Cornell notes. So again, just kind of take a minute to decide, not a whole minute, but take a second to decide what note-taking style you want to practice throughout this workshop. And then I am going to go ahead and play this video.
Time for school, and it's no surprise that many of us are determined to study smarter instead of longer. But which study tips and tricks actually work scientifically and can help you get those perfect grades? First up, research shows that study sessions are most effective in small, short chunks. Instead of cramming in a 10-hour study session, it's much more effective to spread it out into 20, 30-minute sessions over a few weeks. This is because your brain is better at encoding information into the synapses in short, repeated sessions as opposed to one large one. And this is why even learning different skills, whether it's swimming, tennis, or a singing lesson, often follows this same format. And while cramming and pulling all-nighters may be a ritual, it turns out that this is linked to the lowest grades. After prolonged nocturnal study sessions, reasoning and memory may be negatively affected for up to 4 whole days. Instead, setting up specific times in a day or during the week just to study primes your brain by creating a routine, and over time, studying actually becomes easier as your brain is trained to learn in those moments. And while many of us spend hours passively rereading our notes or highlighting a textbook, studies have shown this to be ineffective. It doesn't improve your understanding of topics, nor does it link key concepts together. It can even be detrimental as it draws your attention to less important information. Flashcards, on the other hand, are proven to be excellent memory reinforcement tools, whether during your scheduled study times or during off times like a bus ride home. It also helps to have a specific goal for each study session. Instead of aimlessly studying, pick one aspect you'll focus on, whether it's balancing chemical equations or learning how to conjugate French verbs. If you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. In studies where individuals were asked to learn a passage and then half were told that they would be tested on the material while the other half were told they would have to teach it to other students, participants expecting to teach it did much better at understanding the main points. When you're expecting to teach, your brain organizes the information in a more logical, coherent structure. Of course, practice, practice, practice. Not only do practice tests put your brain in the environment, but even if you make mistakes, they help identify gaps in your knowledge. Practice tests have also been shown to increase confidence, thereby leading to better performance. So, where should you be studying? Research shows that having a designated sacred spot for study that's well equipped with every tool you might need is best. Just like setting times, this primes your brain for studying. Have an awesome study playlist? Not so fast. While some studies have shown that certain types of classical music can help improve concentration, a recent study has shown that learning with rhythmic background noise can be detrimental to focus, and those not using music fared much better. And if you haven't already, put away your phone. This is a no-brainer, but your texts and social media notifications severely decrease concentration. Of course, exams can be extremely stressful, so if you want some tips on how to deal with exam anxiety, check out our ASAP Thought video, which breaks down some tips for that. Link in the description. And a big thank you to TD Bank for sponsoring this video. If you're heading to campus this fall, click on the link below or visit
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop it there. So normally during this time, I would kind of ask what you took away from that video. But I'm just gonna go ahead and share what I took away from that video, if that's okay. Like for example, I didn't know the fact about the music because I do notice that maybe when I do have a playlist that I really like, I tend to start focusing on maybe the lyrics, or maybe I start to imagine myself singing in place of that singer, right? So your mind kind of starts going. So that was something that was new to me. And also highlighting, I do like to highlight a lot. I do like to believe that it works for me, but after a while, even I realize, okay, I'm kind of highlighting everything, which isn't really making anything stick out, right? So that's just kind of what I took away from that video. If you need or want to watch the video again, it's called The 9 Best Scientific Study Tips. Again, The 9 Best Scientific Study Tips. It's on good old YouTube, so you can kind of go back and refer to it. So we are going to go ahead and continue with our presentation. So when do you study, right? Like myself, I like to study between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., right? But that's just me. Others might like to study after dinner, maybe before dinner, before the gym. So like the video said, choosing a routine as to when to study is best, and it helps your brain a little bit more. And then where do you study? I know right now is a little bit different, but in general, do you study in a quiet place? Do you study in a place that has all the materials that you might need? Um, do you study maybe with friends in the kitchen? So identifying where you study. And then finally, how you study. Do you study? Are you someone who's kind of, always relied more on your own thinking and your own interpretation of the information? So just identifying how it is that you study, maybe flashcards, etc. Okay. So identifying a couple of study skills. In terms of when you study, making sure to set aside time specifically for studying. Again, referring back to that video, they mentioned it's best to set aside specific blocks, maybe 3 to 4 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, and your brain gets used to that. It's recommended that you spend 2 hours for every hour spent in class to be successful. So if you have a one unit class, which is 1 hour, it's recommended that you spend just about 2 hours studying for that class in particular. Where do you study? Choosing the best study environment is another factor in how successful you are at studying. Me, for example, it's very difficult to study at home because of my doggies. They're the cutest and I always want to pet them, so it doesn't work out for me personally. Choosing a place that is comfortable but not too comfortable. So maybe you like to study on your bed and you find yourself maybe taking more naps than studying, right? So choosing a place that is comfortable but not too comfortable. And then if you're not able to concentrate at home, choosing another place to study. Normally that might be the library or Starbucks or maybe a school center, maybe the student union, anything like that. Now it's a little bit different. So even then, choosing another place to study, maybe that isn't your room. If you're able to, maybe it's outside for a little bit, just choosing an area that's going to work best for you. In terms of how do you study, creating a study plan. Okay, studying at night doesn't work for me because I fall asleep. Maybe I'm going to try studying before dinner, right? Creating a study plan. And then doing difficult things first. We tend to typically do things that are more easy to get them out of the way. But then if we perceive something as too difficult, then maybe we procrastinate and leave it till the end, right? And that's not something that we want, because procrastination isn't necessarily a skill, although some people think it might be. We're gonna go ahead and move on. In terms of exam preparation, take a moment to think about just how it is that you yourself prepare for an exam. Again, do you even prepare for an exam? Are you someone who constantly prepares for an exam and gets good results, right? So how do you prepare for an exam? Go ahead and take a minute to kind of process that and think about that while I sip some water. Okay. So before the test, what do you do, right? There are 4 pieces of information that you can use to help you before the test. So this includes previous exams and quizzes, information from the class before the exam, right? So usually teachers will do like a quick review, or they'll briefly say, we're only going to be focusing on short answer questions, or that information. Instructor handouts and information from other students. So if you can review a past exam, do it. A lot of times professors will take very similar questions, if not the exact same questions that they have from past exams or quizzes. If not, try to remember what types of questions were asked. So were the questions facts, or did they require a higher level of thinking? So was it more multiple choice, true, false, or was it short answer, maybe comparison? Again, the instructor might give a brief overview of the exam by discussing content and format. So they might let you know ahead of the class, like for this test, it's going to be 50 true, false, and 50 multiple choice, right? So take in that information so that you can better prepare. Using instructor handouts, sometimes the instructors will hand out diagrams or definitions. So using that to help you study. And also using information from other students, especially if you have maybe a professor that does tend to ask those short answer questions that require more critical thinking. Maybe working with a group, you might be able to identify some things that in others that maybe you weren't able to catch the first time. So that's what's recommended, is to form study groups. In terms of reducing stress, because that kind of comes with preparing for an exam, right, is kind of going through the motions of being stressed. So what are some things that stress you out? Again, normally I would take the time to listen to you all. Go ahead and take some time to maybe identify what are some things that are causing you stress, if there are any. Take a moment. We have SpongeBob over here, mega stressed out. I will share one thing that does stress me out actually is laundry, because I tend to leave it all the way to until the weekend. But I'm also a graduate student, so I have a lot of homework, a lot of readings, a lot of field work assignments, regular school assignments that I typically use the weekend to complete. And yeah, doing my laundry totally stresses me out. So yeah, we'll go ahead and continue. The reason that procrastination comes up right after what are some things that stress you out is because sometimes procrastination ends up causing us stress, right? So procrastination is defined as the practice of carrying out less urgent tasks in preference to more urgent ones. So earlier we mentioned, again, doing the difficult things first, because sometimes those are what we tend to leave till the very end, okay? Doing more pleasurable things in place of less pleasurable ones is another definition of procrastination. And then putting off impending tasks to a later time, sometimes till the very last minute before a deadline. Overall, it is a behavior that can be changed. So it's not a matter of time management per se. It's more a matter of identifying that behavior and being able to change it in order to get some better results. There are different types of procrastination, believe it or not. We have arousal types, avoiders, and decisional procrastinators. So our arousal types, or our thrill seekers, are those that wait until the last minute for a euphoric rush, right? It's not that way for everybody. Others don't have a euphoric rush. It's just stress and anxiety all the way, right? But there are some that do seek that and do enjoy that. So that could be a type of procrastinator you might be. There are the avoiders, who may be avoiding due to fear of failure or even fear of success. So in other words, they're concerned with what others might think of them. So they'd rather have others think, like maybe they lacked effort or they weren't able to do it, rather than lacking ability. So it kind of puts that pressure off of that. And then decisional procrastinators, they aren't able to make a decision. So what they do is, so not making a decision absolves procrastinators from of responsibility for the outcome of the events. So we see this a lot in terms of students who are writing essays. So they'll say like, oh, I can't get my essay started because I can't figure out how to write an intro. I can't decide what to write in my intro. So then that kind of causes you to not write the essay at all. So that's kind of an example of a decisional procrastinator. In terms of organization and focus to help with procrastination, we have a couple tools that students have found that worked in the past. So that includes a planner or an agenda, which a lot of folks do use. I myself use Passion Planner. It's not an ad or anything. I just really like it. It has everything laid out like by half an hour, so it works out for me. But you're able to see any hard or major deadlines, so midterms, finals, maybe you have a work project, so something like that, and then personal deadlines. Maybe you have a weight loss goal, or maybe you have a baby shower, So personal deadlines can be included in that. Weekly time schedule. Some folks use Excel or Google spreadsheet. There's also Google Calendar. Some create a table on Word. So there are different ways to kind of keep track of all of that. There's also several apps. I mentioned earlier, Google Calendar also has that. It's recommended that you block days and times in which you're busy. So for example, class, work, so that you don't overlap with anything like that. It also allows you to assess if you have any gaps in between your busy times. So maybe if you need to squeeze in a dentist appointment, you're able to open up your time schedule and see, okay, sorry, it's a little hot. Maybe you're able to see, okay, I have a gap on Thursday between 11 and 1. I can go to my appointment between 11:30 and 12:30, right? So it kind of allows you to see that, or to visualize that is a better term. So prioritizing to-do list, creating a to-do list of creating a to-do list every day and checking off every completed task throughout the day. That definitely helps. We hear a lot of students are constantly thinking about, like, I have to do X, Y, Z, and just writing it down, you're able to see, like, okay, this can wait till the end of the day, or this needs to be done as soon as possible. Again, it allows you to prioritize. And then you're able to see, like, okay, certain tasks can wait, or maybe this doesn't even need to be done this week, right? So more than anything, all of these organizational tools are to allow you to prioritize and to hopefully manage your time a little bit better. We also have what's called the priority matrix. So if you'd like, you can kind of take notes on it. So essentially, in the first quadrant, you can list tasks with immediate deadlines. So if you have a test tomorrow, or if you have maybe a quiz to study for. So we don't want, excuse me. So yeah, so that's in quadrant 1. For quadrant 2, maybe it's not as urgent. You don't have to do it right away, but if you can, do it as soon as possible, right? Sooner rather than later. So maybe the essay that's due next week, exercising, right? If you have a test to study for, okay, maybe I need to study for my test and I can exercise tomorrow instead of today. Tomorrow after my test instead of today before my test. So that's kind of what that makes sense. So here we kind of see the prioritizer, which is vision, which has a vision. They try to balance and they try to control. Excuse me. For quadrant 1, that's usually where we see the procrastinators. They're a little bit more stressed out, a little bit more burnt out. I'm not sure why it says firefighter, but yeah, moving on. Quadrant 3, other people's small problems. So peer pressure. So maybe you're stressed out about your best friend's drama. You know, you don't really have time for that. You have to study for a test. You have to work out because you're gonna go to a big wedding, right? So maybe your best friend's small problems aren't, you know, as important. Typically, we see here the yes person that typically feels used. In quadrant 4, this is folks who maybe spend too much time on their screens. Maybe they take a few more naps than recommended. And then here we usually see people who are slackers in quadrant 4. So definitely identify what quadrant you want to be at, don't want to be at, and kind of assess your different priorities and your different to-do lists. So some benefits to planning. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but there are benefits. It helps you put things first, right? So what is important to you? What can you control? It helps you anticipate challenges and opportunities. So maybe you have a really big paper that is going to be due at the very end of the semester. So you have a ton of time, but if you set aside some time to review it before it's due, then you can you're able to anticipate any challenges that you might have in the paper, like maybe finding articles or maybe interviewing someone, right? Those challenges that you might not see or foresee unless you were anticipating those challenges. It gives you freedom and control. Like I said, putting things that you want to do first, things that you're able to control first, right? And then it also gives you a sense of accomplishment because you are essentially getting more things done. You're essentially maybe getting better test scores, right? So there are definitely benefits to planning. So moving on, again, it's important to have a weekly schedule. This is kind of what it looks like or what it could look like. This kind of looks like Google Calendar a little bit. So a time grid will help you see how your time is spent and how much free time you have. So I mentioned earlier, maybe you wanted to squeeze in a dentist appointment, right? It allows you to clearly visualize your days and weeks and break them down in terms of activity and allocation of time. In general, you're in control of your time, so make good use of it. Like I said, whatever you can control, whatever you can handle first, prioritize. Let's see, in general, plan on 2 to 3 hours of study per week for every academic unit. However, if you see that you're spending more than 4 hours per unit, you may be studying ineffectively, or you might need more support. So that's when we empower you to reach out to either the Student Success and Dream Center or the Tutoring Center so that, you know, we can all help you and ensure your success. And again, only you can determine how much time you need. We do recommend 2 to 3 hours per unit, all that good stuff. But if you find yourself that you're really excelling in a maybe sociology class, and you feel you maybe don't need to put in as much effort as you do to your maybe statistics class, then you're able to have that autonomy because it is your schedule and it is your time and only you have control over it. Okay. So again, this is kind of what the weekly schedule looks like. So red could be work, blue could be school, and then maybe green could be maybe you're involved in a club, right? Maybe those are club meetings. So this is kind of what it could look like. And then the white, let's say those are gaps in time. So then again, I love that dentist appointment. Maybe, okay, I can squeeze in a dentist appointment between 12 and 1 on Thursday because there's a gap, right? So it helps you visualize your time. Goal setting. So goal setting is extremely important. Well, I just meant that in general, but yes, in our presentation too, it's really important. And why it's really important is because it creates a standard of performance. And it also sets up positive expectations for achievements. So I'll share with you all because I share this with everybody. I love shoes. I love shoes, adore them, don't know what it is, but I can't just buy them uncontrollably, right? So my goal sometimes is, okay, if I get an A on that midterm, my goal will be a brand new pair of heels or a brand new pair of Jordans, whatever that might be, right? And it's important because it does set a standard of performance. Okay, I want that A, I want that A, so I'm gonna work for that A. So I hope that's a good example. I love that example because it's my own. Our goals have time dimensions, so short-term and long-term goals. So I had a goal of getting into a master's program, and maybe that reward should be, or that goal for that reward should be a little bit bigger because it is a long-term goal, right? A lot went into that, which included getting a bachelor's, having a mentor, speaking to right? A lot went into that. So that was a long-term goal. So that's what we mean by having time dimensions, because getting into a master's program is a very different goal as opposed to getting an A on a midterm, right? So that's what that means by having time dimensions. So a lot of people use SMART goals, and that stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely goals. So the goals that I mentioned were a little bit like straightforward, but when you create goals, if you focus on the SMART acronym, it can help you create goals that are a little bit more realistic and that can kind of guide you in terms of prioritizing. So a specific goal describes what you want to accomplish with as much detail as possible. So specific, getting into grad school, getting into Cal State Long Beach, getting into the school counseling program, right? Very specific with as much detail as possible. So when was it due? When, right? All these little details. Measurable. So it describes your goal in terms of what can be clearly evaluated. So I wanted to get into grad school, let's say by fall 2020, right? So that's measurable. So maybe for you, all a goal might be, I want to get into that internship by the end of my first year of college, right? So it helps you evaluate, okay, did I get into that internship by the end of my first year of college? Was I able to do what I needed to do to get into that internship? Action-oriented identifies a goal that focuses on actions rather than personal qualities. So that is, again, what is it that you need to do in order to complete that goal? So it's not about me being able to present well. It's not about that. It's about being able to meet deadlines or write a good sample or whatever that might be. Realistic, so identifies a goal that you know you're actually capable of attaining. So again, for you, a goal might be getting that internship versus that internship towards the end of your first year versus, oh, I want to be the director of NASA by my first semester of college, right? That is a phenomenal goal, but it's a little bit unrealistic. So when you're trying to identify goals, make sure that they are realistic ones. And then timely. So identifies a goal that focuses on actions. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, that was a mistake. But timely. So making sure that we are able to accomplish it within a certain amount of time, right? Because you don't want a goal that is so far down the line that you lose sense of the specific details. You lose sense of like the action-oriented details, what it is that you need to do because it's so far down the line, right? So a goal also needs to be very timely. So some examples of SMART goals include academic. So I want to complete an advanced mathematics course next semester, achieving a final grade of at least a B, right? So I want to challenge myself by taking an advanced math class. And because it's advanced, I want to at least get a B, right? So that's an academic goal. An occupational goal. So maybe I want to obtain an internship in public relations by the end of May by applying for at least one internship every week. So again, by the end of May, it has a time by applying for at least one internship every week. So it's action oriented. An internship, so the detail is that it's an internship in public relations. So that's what's specific. And then personal, I want to work out 4 times a week for 40 minutes. I want to work out 4 times a week for 40 minutes throughout the current semester. So what is it that they want specifically? To work out. How many times? 4 times a week. What do they have to do? Work out 40 minutes. The time during the current semester. So these are just some examples of SMART goals. We did go through a lot of information. If you have any questions, please, you can feel free to email me. My email is jcolmenares@riohondo.edu. That's jcolmenares@riohondo.edu. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Remember, procrastination is a behavior that you can totally change. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Okay, thank you.